We're going to start off in Lightroom with this photograph I made of a fawn that visits my back field almost every evening now during the summer months. Anyways, we're going to process this in Lightroom. I'm going to show you my techniques for doing a typical wildlife type photograph. As we can see, this is straight out of the camera. I've got a virtual copy of this made in Lightroom, and the original file is here. It's already been somewhat processed, but I wanted to take you through the beginnings of this photograph. The camera settings for this were 1/640th of a second at f6.3 at ISO 3200. Normally, the first thing I do is I go into the basic area, and I want to show you what I've got here to start off with. On my imports, I have a profile I use, a preset, and the profile that I select on my imports is Adobe Standard. It gives you the flattest, well, not flat, but not oversaturated. There's other options that you could pick. You could pick vivid. You can see it changing there. You could pick color. I just use Adobe Standard on all my imports. The camera had the white balance set at 5850, and I'm just going to leave that right there for now. I don't see any reason to change that. But normally the first thing I do in Lightroom is on a photograph is I go into the tone section and I click on the auto button to see what Lightroom wants to do with that. And oh boy, look at that. Man, that's really deep fried and cooked. That's way, way oversaturated. Well, as you can see, Lightroom picked up some vibrance and saturation. I'm going to zero those out. Okay, I want to work on this individually. So the first thing I'm going to do is get rid of this vibrance. I'm just going to double click on that word and then get rid of the saturation. And it already looks better. Okay. The next thing I'm going to do is I need to bring some of those greens down. I'm going to go down to calibration. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to make some changes here. And the first thing I'm going to do is raise the tint more towards magenta by about 3. That'd be a +3. And I'm not going to fool with the red channel, but on the green channel, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add about 14 to the hue. And then on the saturation, I'm going to make a -57 selection on that. And it's already looking better. And then I'm going to bring the blue saturation down a little bit. We'll leave that at 0, the hue, and then the blue, we're going to bring it down to -35. So as you can see, this is where we started, and this is where I'm at using the calibration part of this. So now what I'm going to do is use the new masking feature in Lightroom, and I'm going to create a mask that just has the deer in there as the selection. So I go up here to the mask icon and click on that. I'm going to go ahead and select subject, and it did a real good job of selecting the subject. Okay, I also want to create a mask for the background. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to name this mask deer. Okay, and I'm going to take this mask and invert it. And the way you do that is go to the 3 little dots here at the end, and you click on that, go to duplicate and invert mask. Now it's got a background selection, and I'm going to rename that to background. Okay, so we're going to go back to the deer, and we're going to work on the deer for a second. So I'm going to turn the overlay off so I can see what I'm doing. And the first thing I did was I reduced my contrast to -16 for the deer. So I'm going to do -16, and then what I did was -27 on the highlights. Now this is all subjective depending on the photograph. You may want to change it differently. I like to bring the contrast down and the highlights down in my initial edits. We're going to do some other things in Photoshop with this that's going to really make this thing pop. I'm going to raise my shadows by 10, and I'm going to increase the whites by 18 and reduce the blacks by -14. And that adds a little bit of contrast back into the image. So now we're going to work on the background. So I'm going to go up here and select the background. And I'm going to turn the overlay off so we can see what we're doing. And I'm going to reduce the exposure of the background I'm going to make it about minus 0.25, about a quarter stop. Oops, typed in the wrong thing. Minus 0.25. Okay. And then I'm going to decrease the contrast in the background, minus 16, and decrease the highlights in the background, minus 14. We're darkening up the image now a little bit. And I'm going to reduce the blacks by minus 12. So what we've done here is we've created a little bit of separation between the foreground and the background. So let's go back and look at the original image real quick. And you can see where we started from. Everything's kind of flat. The deer in the background all kind of blends in together. And what we've done here is we've created the illusion of 3D, which allows the animal to pop from the page. Okay, so the next thing I need to do, now that I've got my basic adjustments done in Lightroom, is this photograph here was shot at ISO 3200. As you can see, after I zoom in, there's a fair bit of noise on this image, and we're going to have to clean that up a little bit. Now, Lightroom has a denoise, the new Lightroom has a denoise feature built in under the Details tab. I have Topaz Denoise AI. I think Topaz does a better job of cleaning these images up. That is what I'm going to use tonight, is Topaz. So we're going to launch Topaz from here, and I just right click and go edit in Topaz Denoise AI, and we're going to let that start up. And I'm going to move the magnifying glass over to its head, and I'm going to just roll back out a little bit so I can see. So the 4 standard models here that I watch is standard, clear, low light, and severe noise. What I do is just kind of look at them and compare to see which one looks the best. And right now, right off the bat, for sharpness and everything, the clear model looks the best. So we're going to select clear by clicking on that box, and we're going to leave the model preferences on automatic. That's it. I'm not going to change anything else. I'm just going to apply that, and it's going to render the file and send it back to Lightroom as a TIFF file. So here's the denoised file that was returned from Topaz Denoise AI. Now I've applied a small crop to this, and I'm going to show you what that is. And I've just kept it at the original size. And what I've done is I just kind of moved the crop grid lines around a little bit, so I kind of follow the rules of third here. So you can see the deer's head is on one of the intersecting lines there. It kind of makes it more balanced. And the deer looking behind her gives more negativity space on this side. So you always want to allow more space in the direction that your animal is looking in. If she had been looking forward, then I would have allowed more space over here in front of her. So now I'm finished with my edits in Lightroom. This is about as far as I want to go. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take this image into Photoshop and do some things over there with it. So I'm going to right click, edit in, and go to Photoshop. And we'll wait for that to open up. And now we have the image in Photoshop. So the first thing I'm going to do with this image is I'm going to use the Nick collection on it. And I use the Nick collection. I have the paid version on quite a few of my images. So I'm going to go up to the top here to let me get Photoshop here. Under Filter, go down to the Nick collection and Color FX Pro 5. And one of the things I like to check on sometimes is the Brilliance and Warmth tool. And I'm going to click on this one right here. And I kind of like what it's doing, but we're going to have to tone it down just a little bit. So I'm going to back the saturation up just a hair. Now, what I'm looking at right here is the deer. I'm targeting my selection. I'll show you what we're going to do. We're going to create a mask here in a minute. And I'm targeting my eyes and the selection on the deer. Forget about what it's doing to the grass. So I'm going to pull the saturation down just a little bit, and I might just increase the warmth of the deer. And I'm going to go ahead and say OK, apply. And it's going to create a mask and show the whole thing. I don't want this effect applied to this grassy area, just to the deer, okay? So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to create a layer mask, and then on the Mac, I'm going to hold Command I. On the PC, it'd be Control I. Command I will make the mask, or the mask will hide the effect, and then with a white paintbrush, I'm going to just paint on the deer, not on the grass. I'm just going to paint like this, and you can see it's applying the effect to the deer. And I normally have a tablet, but I don't have it hooked up right now, but I'm using my mouse to do this on here. And as you can see, we're adding that effect, that brilliance and warmth effect, to the deer itself. And I think it makes the deer just pop just a little bit more. Make sure we get all this right here. I just love her ears, how she's got them popped out there listening. She heard something. I think she heard my wife leaving in the car is why she did that. So I'm going to hit the Z key to zoom in, and we'll go in just a little bit right here and hit the B key to pick the brush and the left square bracket to reduce the size of the brush. And we're just going to paint generally in this area right here. Make sure we get this other leg right there and the tail. This is really, I really like this composition. This is a nice composition of this baby deer. Okay, I'll get a little bit more right there and there. That's not too bad for this demonstration. That's pretty good. So I'm going to hit fit screen for the zoom. So now you can see what it's done to the deer. If you want to turn it off to look at it, this is where we started from, and this is where we ended up with the brilliance. Now, what I want to do is I want to add a little bit of glamour glow to this. So I'm going to go back up here to filter, and I'm sorry, I got to come down here and check the background here. Go to the Nig collection, color effects, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a little glamour glow to this scene. This is my second most favorite tool that I use. Now I want to decrease the glow just a little bit and protect my highlights. And I'm going to go ahead and apply it to the whole image, but we're not going to keep it on the whole image, although it doesn't look too bad. What I want to do is I just want to have this amount of glamour glow in the lower part of this grass, not in this upper part. So what I'm going to do is create a mask, and we're going to hide it with Control I. Select the white paintbrush, and we're going to just paint it in by hand. I'm going to increase my brush size, and I'm going to paint that in just in this area down here. Not the top part, not up above the head area up there. You can see there's almost like a line of separation between the two areas. And I think she was standing on a little bit of a rise in the field. We're going to get this up here behind her back. And apply this glow effect to this part of the image, but not the top part. So after I brush that in, I want to do one more thing. I'm going to flatten my layers here to make it a little bit simpler on me. And now what we're going to do is we're going to go into Adobe Camera Raw. But before I start that, I want to make a copy of my background layer. So I'm just going to drag it down to the plus sign and drop it, and it's going to make a background copy. I'm going to go up here to Filter, Camera Raw Filter. We're going to start that up. And what I want to do is do a mask on the upper part of this where the grass is up here. We're going to darken that just a little bit while we're here. So I'm going to do a brush, okay, and we're just going to increase the brush size, and we're going to brush in a mask using the Adobe Camera Raw, which is in a sense Lightroom in Photoshop. And we're just going to do like that. Just roughly get it brushed in. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is decrease the exposure just a little bit up there, so it's just a little bit separation between the foreground and the background. I kind of like that right there. I think let's try the contrast just a bit. Let's take it up just a hair. Yep, I like that. I'm going to say okay, accept that selection. And if you want to see what it was before we did it, that's turned off and that's applied. We're going to go ahead and flatten the layer here. So far I like what I got. And we're going to save this back to Lightroom by hitting File and Save. And we're going to close Photoshop. Okay, here's the image that we just edited in Photoshop. This is where we started from, and then we went to Photoshop and applied these effects here. So I'm going to go to full screen so you can see it. This is before we applied the Nick collection, and this is after. Isn't it a much pleasing picture? There's only one thing left to do to this, and that's to sharpen it. So I'm going to use Topaz Sharpen AI, which I really like. It's a really good tool. It was part of the package when I bought the 3 products, which included Gigapixel, Sharpen, and Denoise. So here's a little swipe. You can look and see what it's going to be like. And it's actually doing a pretty good job. Okay, I've got it set on automatic by clicking this right here. Let's have a look here. Let's see if there's any one that's better than the other. Now, I think what I'm going to do is let it select the model. And it says standard. So, we did a swipey thing here. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and apply that. But I tell you what, I just want to sharpen the deer. I don't want to sharpen the whole image. So what I'm going to do is click on this little selective sharpen tool down here, or hit the M key, and you're going to get this, and the whole thing is masked. I'm going to hit add. Okay, and what we're going to do is we're going to add, I'm going to reduce the down to 50%. We're just going to add the deer back in, and that's all we're going to sharpen. Make sure we get her ears, because her ears are very important to me. There's a lot of little follicles in there. So I'm just going to paint the deer in this mask, and this is all it's going to sharpen, is where I'm painting when we get ready to apply this. And it doesn't hurt if you go outside a little bit, but move this little box down here. Make sure we get all that. Whoops, a little too much. Control Z or Command Z on a Mac will get you backwards. The screen just flickered for some reason. All right, and we hit apply at the bottom, and then we're going to apply one more time. It's just going to sharpen the deer, and it's going to take us back to Lightroom. And that is the final image. Okay, we started here and we ended up there.